Lord, how many are my foes? How many rise up against me? Many are saying of me, God will not deliver him. But you, Lord, are a shield around me, my glory, the one who lifts my head high. I call out to the Lord, and he answers me from his holy mountain. I lie down and sleep. I wake again, because the Lord sustains me. I will not fear though tens of thousands assail me on every side. Arise, Lord, deliver me, my God. Strike all my enemies on the jaw. Break the teeth of the wicked. From the Lord comes deliverance. May your blessing be on your people. The faith that won't bow, and the God who walks into the fire in the heart of the most powerful empire on earth. Babylon reigned Nebuchadnezzar, a king with a monumental ego. Drunk on his own power, he set up a gold statue over 90 feet tall on the plain of Dura, and peoples of the empire were to fall down and worship the gold image. Then he issued an inflexible decree. At the sound of the horn, flute, zither, and all kinds of music, all the officials, governors, the threat for anyone who disobeyed was terrifying and immediate. To be thrown alive into a blazing furnace, it was the embodiment of how many rise up against me. The pressure was absolute. Thousands of people from every nation gathered. The sound of the royal orchestra echoed, and as one man, the crowd bowed down. But in the midst of that tide of conformity, 3 young Hebrews remained standing: Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, better known by their Babylonian names, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Immediately, they were accused before the king. Nebuchadnezzar's fury was palpable. Couldn't believe the audacity of those 3, which is the very essence of Psalm 3:2:2. Then what God will be able to rescue you from my hand? They weren't negotiating with God. Their trust didn't depend on deliverance. He confronted them directly, offering one last chance, but with a question loaded with contempt and arrogance. They were at peace, ready to sleep of death, trusting that the Lord would sustain them, whether in life or in death. He was saying exactly what David's enemies said: God will not deliver you. He leaned in to look into the furnace, and his face transformed from fury to pure shock. He shouted to his advisors, "Weren't there 3 men that we tied up and threw into the fire?" They confirmed. The 3 young men's response is one of the greatest declarations of faith in the entire Bible. For all intents and purposes, it was the end. With a calm and a courage that was not of this world, they replied, "King Nebuchadnezzar, do not need to defend ourselves before you in this matter. If we are thrown into the blazing furnace, the God we serve is able to deliver us from it, and he will deliver us from your majesty's hand. But even if he does not, we want you to know, your majesty, that we will not serve your gods or worship the image of gold you have set up." This short phrase, "but even if he does not," is the turning point of faith. They trusted in God's character, not just his power. Furious, Nebuchadnezzar ordered the furnace heated 7 times hotter than usual. The fire was so intense that the king's strongest soldiers, who tied up and threw the 3 young men into the fire, died instantly, consumed by the flames. But then the king leaped to his feet in amazement. Then the king declared, astonished, "Look, I see 4 men walking around in the fire, unbound and unharmed, and the 4th looks like a son of the gods." God didn't save them from the furnace. He entered the furnace with them. He became their shield in the most dangerous place possible. The very king who condemned them now called them out, and they came out. Their clothes were intact, their hair was not singed, and there wasn't even the smell of smoke on them. Most scholars agree that David composed this song in the darkest moment of his life. The God who was publicly challenged performed a public and undeniable deliverance, causing the greatest enemy to bow down and declare, "Praise be to the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego." The pain was much deeper, as the threat came from within his own house. The story behind the cry of confidence. But he's not running from just any enemy. He's fleeing from his own son Absalom. The son he loved, whom he watched grow up, was now leading a rebellion to take his throne, and if possible, his life. To understand the depth of this psalm, we need to travel back in time and put ourselves in the shoes of the one who wrote it. But in the midst of this storm, something extraordinary happens. David's faith rises. This psalm is the record of that turning point, from the darkness of anguish to the light of divine confidence. He stops looking at the circumstances around him and lifts his eyes to heaven. He is no longer the mighty king in his palace, but a heartbroken father, a betrayed leader, a humbled man. It wasn't a battle against a foreign giant or an enemy army. Imagine the scene. David, the king of Israel, the man after God's own heart, is fleeing from Jerusalem. The betrayal was immense. Absalom, with his long hair and captivating appearance, had won the hearts of the people of Israel with false promises and political cunning. That way, you help us bring this message of hope to more people. He presents to God the reality as it is, overwhelming. Worse than the physical threat is the psychological and spiritual attack. He looks back and sees the dust of his son's army approaching. David's trusted counselors, like Ahithophel, whose advice was considered as the very voice of God, also abandoned him and joined Absalom. David goes up the Mount of Olives, barefoot, his head covered, weeping bitterly. It's the voice of hopelessness, the voice we all hear in our worst moments. People look at him with pity, others with contempt. It is in this scenario of absolute despair that the words of Psalm 3 are born. He hears the whispers of the people saying that even God has forsaken him. This single word changes the entire tone of the psalm. David stops describing the problem and starts declaring who God is to him. To say that God will not deliver him was the lowest blow, an attempt to cut off his only source of hope. It is an act of pure trust, a decision to believe in God even when everything and everyone says otherwise. The deep meaning of each verse. Now, let's walk together, verse by verse, to extract all the spiritual treasure this psalm contains. He sees God as a protective barrier, an impenetrable force field that completely surrounds him. The shield doesn't stop the arrows from being shot, but it stops them from hitting him. If this deep analysis is already touching your heart, consider liking this content and subscribing to our channel. Verses 1 and 2. The portrait of a frightening reality, Lord. How many are my foes? How many rise up against me? Many are saying of me, God will not deliver him. David begins with brutal honesty. He doesn't pretend everything is fine. David feels surrounded, outnumbered. The threat isn't small or distant. It's massive and imminent. The voices around him not only predict his military defeat, but also decree his spiritual condemnation. They were saying, "You have sinned so much, you have failed so much, that not even your God can or wants to save you now." Verse 3. The turning point of faith, but you, Lord, are a shield around me, my glory, the one who lifts my head high. Here is the turn. Notice the powerful word that begins this verse. But shield. In the midst of a multitude of enemies, David doesn't see himself as defenseless. My glory. While the world was humiliating him, taking his crown and his honor, David declares that his true glory, his worth, and his identity do not come from the throne of Israel, but from God himself. God is his honor. But he declares by faith that God is the one who would lift his head again, the one who lifts my head high. At that moment, David was walking with his head down, ashamed and defeated. It is a gesture of restoration, of victory, and of vindication. God would not leave him in humiliation. Verse 4. The power of prayer, I call out to the Lord, and he answers me from his holy mountain. David's faith is not passive. It leads him to action. The action here is prayer. David doesn't just think about God. He cries out. He uses his voice. This indicates an intense, specific, and audible prayer. And the response is immediate in his conviction. He doesn't say, I hope he heard me, but states categorically, he answered me. Even though he was far from the tabernacle in Jerusalem, he knew that the connection to God's throne did not depend on geography, but on faith. God hears from his holy mountain, his heavenly command center. Verse 5. The peace that surpasses chaos, I lie down and sleep. I wake again because the Lord sustains me. This is perhaps the most impressive verse in the entire psalm. It is the definitive proof of David's trust. And the fact that he wakes up the next morning is not seen as luck, but as a miracle of divine sustenance. Each new day was a gift of God's faithfulness. Who can sleep soundly knowing that an army, led by their own son, is coming to kill them? He specifies a huge number, tens of thousands, to emphasize that the number of enemies doesn't matter when God is on your side. Only someone who has completely surrendered their life and their battles into God's hands. Sleep here is not an act of negligence, but a supreme act of faith, saying, God, the night watch is yours. I trust in you so much that I will rest. Verse 6. The courage born from faith, I will not fear, though tens of thousands assail me on every side. The imagery of striking the jaw and breaking the teeth may seem strong to us, but it is powerful poetic language. To strike the jaw is a gesture of humiliation, of silencing the mouths of those who speak lies and curses. The peace of the previous verse now transforms into audacious courage. The number that once frightened him, the many foes, now becomes irrelevant. Fear was replaced by a bold confidence. He doesn't say the enemies have disappeared. They are still there all around him, but the fear of them is gone. Verse 7. The plea for divine intervention arise. Lord, deliver me, my God. Strike all my enemies on the jaw. Break the teeth of the wicked. David's trust doesn't stop him from asking for help. He cries out for God's direct action. This reveals the greatness of a true leader's heart. Arise, Lord, is a battle cry, an appeal for the divine warrior to enter the battle. To break the teeth of a wild beast is to neutralize it, to take away its ability to bite and destroy. David is asking God to completely disarm his enemies, to silence their slander and nullify their power of destruction. Verse 8. The final proclamation of truth. From the Lord comes deliverance. May your blessing be on your people. David concludes the psalm not with a focus on himself, but on the greatness of God and his love for the people. This is the great theological conclusion of the psalm. In the end, deliverance, victory, restoration, everything comes from a single source: God himself. It doesn't come from armies, human strategies, or luck. And remarkably, even in his personal pain, David intercedes for the people. He asks that God's blessing be not only for him, but for the entire nation, including even those who were persecuting him. Finding David's rest now, I invite you to a brief moment of prayer. Find a comfortable position. Close your eyes and take 3 deep breaths. Inhale deeply, feeling the air fill your lungs, and exhale slowly, releasing all tension. Now bring your adversaries to mind. They could be people, circumstances, fears, anxieties, an illness, a financial problem. See how they multiply, how the voices say there is no hope for you? Feel the weight of it. But now, with a deep breath, visualize a golden light forming a shield around you. No arrow of accusation or fear can get through. Feel how he gently lifts your head. Your posture changes. The shame goes away. Confidence returns. This is the Lord. Say in your heart, you, Lord, are my shield. Feel the protection, the security. Feel that same light touching the top of your head. It is the glory of God, your true honor. Surrender your cry to him in a whisper. Hear in the silence of your heart the certainty: I have heard you. Now, visualize yourself lying on a soft, comfortable bed. Hand over the night watch to God. Rest. Feel the peace that allows sleep, even in the midst of the storm. Trust that the Lord sustains you. When you are ready, take another deep breath and open your eyes. The voices of doubt, fear, and hopelessness shout that there is no solution for me. Repeat in your heart, I will not fear. From the Lord comes deliverance. Stay in this feeling of peace and security for another moment. Prayer inspired by Psalm 3. Our security is not in the absence of problems, but in the presence of God. Loving Father. Just like David, I often feel surrounded by adversaries. He trusted in the midst of the crisis. The peace he felt didn't come from the change in circumstances, but from the change in his focus. He stopped looking at the size of his problem and started looking at the size of his God. I cry out to you, knowing that you hear me. But today, I choose to declare with my mouth, but you, Lord, are my protecting shield, my honor, and the strength that lifts me up. He is your shield. He is your glory. He is the one who lifts your head. He is the one who sustains you. Surrender your sleepless nights to him and experience the peace that only he can give. I place my battles in your hands and choose to rest in your faithfulness. Sustain me, Father. Arise on my behalf and disarm everything that rises against me. I declare that my salvation does not depend on circumstances. It comes solely from you. In Jesus' name, amen. The message of hope for your life, the central and positive message of Psalm 3, is transformative. David didn't wait for the crisis to pass to trust. That is the lesson for us. Maybe today you feel like David, on the run, heartbroken, hearing voices that say all is lost. God invites you to do the same as David. Declare who he is over your situation. For your reflection, I would like to leave you with 2 questions. What are the many foes that have multiplied in your life today? Have you been focusing on them, or on God as your shield? What would your life be like if you could truly lie down and sleep in peace every night, trusting that the Lord sustains you, regardless of the storms around you? If this message spoke deeply to you, share this content with someone who needs to hear this hope. Leave your comment below, answering one of the questions. Your testimony can strengthen someone else's faith. And of course, if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so we can continue to grow together on this journey of faith. May the blessing of the Lord, who is our salvation, be on your life today and always.